Hello everyone and welcome to another GamePad Online interview. My name is Nigel. I'm the mayamada co-founder, organizer of the GamePad events, and this is another in our series of conversations with industry professionals. So we do this as part of our event to get an idea of how people got to where they are now, the work they do in the games industry, and advice for young and aspiring games professionals. So right now, I'm going to be talking with Miryam Houali, who is the co-founder of the French game development studio Accidental Queens. Miryam, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Cool. So as we do with our interviews, you can follow up, let us know what you think in the chat, in the live stream chat, or afterwards in our Discord. So we have our Discord. You can jump in there, on social media. We're at mayamada on Twitter, at mayamada TV on Instagram. Let us know what you think. So we're just gonna jump into some questions for Miryam. But to give a bit of background, bit of context to who she is, she's worked as a freelance graphic designer and artist before co-founding Accidental Queens, which we're going to talk a lot about. She's in charge of the art direction, 2D art production, and external community management around that. And for those that might not know, Accidental Queens is a studio focused on new game mechanics and exploring topics from everyday life and social questions. So we're definitely going to ask about that and what that means for making video games. But we start at the beginning, and like I mentioned, you have a background in as a graphic designer and artist. So is that what you studied in school, and is that always related to games or just general artwork?
I studied applied arts. It was specific to video games. My courses was specific to video games. But after my first internship in video game development studio, I couldn't find work in the video games field. So I had a large set of skills around illustration, graphic design, and stuff. So I say, why not try to broaden a bit my search? And I had some contacts who wanted web design kind of work. So I tried to do that, and it works. But after that, I was not satisfied. I really wanted to work in video games. So I studied some more at the National School of Video Games and Interactive Media. It's called NGMIN in France, and I did a master's degree to get better at what I did, and also to have a better network and be able to find more video games related work. So after that, I worked at Pasta Games and a game called The Cat, and then I still struggle to find video game related work. So I did some more graphic design work for a friend's company. They are Prismatic. They are primarily doing things around board games and animations around board games. So I did that, and also some branding for events and stuff like that. So that was what I was doing. Also commission work, like illustration, stuff like that. Just before funding Accidental.
Oh wow! Okay, so there was a lot of kind of, I guess, in a sense, rejection in terms of not being able to find work. And was it a case of not being able to find the right jobs, or finding the right jobs but just not being able to get them in the games industry?
I think it was a bit of both, because this is a very competitive field because there aren't a lot of jobs for young artists. I think once you have the experience, once you have a good portfolio and you have more cred, it gets easier. But when you're just fresh out of school, it's really hard to find like your first job. So if it's not like if you find an internship and just after that you can continue at the same company or stuff like that, maybe it's easier. But I couldn't do that, so I had to be creative in finding stuff to do to improve and get a better portfolio.
Yeah. And you mentioned like going back to school to study a master's for like the degree, but you also mentioned networking.
Yeah.
So how important was that, like when you finished the degree?
It was very important. I think it was the most important thing I got from Engmin, because the first school I attended allowed me to get like technical skills, but there wasn't much networking. There wasn't much like I had no real industry knowledge after the first 3 years of school, and I got that at Engmin. Like I got like more knowledge about what the industry was, not just like big AAA companies, but also the world of indies and what it was really like to work in a studio and stuff like that. Because I had an internship before, but it was just one tiny little experience, and it wasn't like really really representative of what the industry is about. So networking was really important, because the people I met back then at Engmin are now my colleagues. Like I worked for some of them, like I hired some of them later. Like it's super important to have that network.
Yeah. And so then you founding your studio, Accidental Queens, was that as a result of not getting the roles you want, or was that like I've now met these people, we can do something, let's make our own studio? How did that come about?
It's a fun story, actually. It's a bit more complicated than that. Back in 2016, there is an event happening each year that is the Global Game Jam, which is a big event where people who doesn't necessarily know each other come together to develop games together in a short time frame, like just during a weekend. And I had a friend participating in that global game jam at Engmin, which is one of the sites which organize it, and they did what they were in a team of 4 people, and they did what was the first prototype of a normal less fun, which would be our first game. Right. And when they sent me the prototype, and I was like, "Whoa, this is awesome! I really like that." And at the time, they were just going to like put it on the internet, and that was it. They made the prototype, and but
so there was no studio at this point. It was just some people.
No, there was no studio. Okay. It was just 4 people having fun making a prototype of a game in 3 days. Okay. So but it was really good. It was a super interesting concept of like narrative investigation into a stranger's phone, where you were piecing together information about that person to find secrets about their life, and it was really clever and interesting. So people liked it, players, but also some press people talked about it on the internet, and they were like, "Oh, people like it. Maybe we should like finish it, make it into a proper game. So we need a team." And that's when they asked me, would you like to join the team, because we need another artist and someone who knows not just how to draw the asset for the game, because there was already Estelle was the art director, but she didn't know how to do web design, for example, and they wanted to do a crowdfunding campaign. So there was all this visual communication stuff to do, and they asked me to do it. So I was like, yeah, sure. So the game is awesome. I want to work on it. And so we did the campaign. It was a success. After that, we found a publisher, Plugin Digital, who accepted to help fund the game. Not to pay ourselves, we weren't paying ourselves at the time, but to pay some translators, musicians, like to make the game better, and also a bit of PR and marketing to talk about the game. And in January 2017, we released the game, and it was a big success. So after that, part of the team decided to fund Accidental Queens, and it was me, and also my current business partner Diane, and also so the friend who initially invited me, Elizabeth, and we were the three people who co-founded the company.
Okay, so all from that game jam that came from networking from
yeah.
Okay, cool. So networking is kind of important there. That's really cool. So, and I mean, the idea of starting your own studio, I guess for people who haven't done that, and particularly like for young people who might be like, I want to make my own game. I imagine there's a difference between making a game and making a game studio. Like, what did you know about making a game studio at the time, and what surprised you about that part of the journey?
I didn't know anything about making a game studio.
Yeah, because that's business now. Now we're talking about it.
At the time, I wasn't at all knowledgeable in all of those business-y things. I knew how to make games, not sell them or So we found before making anything, we found the right people to help us. Like as I said, first there was the publisher who was in charge of selling the game on the different stores and like helping us with the marketing and communication. And so the whole selling part, we never did it ourselves. It's all the publisher's work. So we work with them. They send us like sales reports every month with all the games benefits and stuff. And it's how we sell the games. And for the funding a company part, we were helped by someone at I don't know how to say that. It's called Ruche d'entreprise in French, but it's like a place for young people who want to create companies, and they give you like an office, and you have people helping you understand like how to get funding, how to found like government grants and investors and stuff like that.
Okay. We'd call them like incubators or accelerators.
It's a kind of incubator, but it's even before you even create the company. You have the project of the company, and you say you want to create it, and you will have help to find everything you need to do it.
Okay.
So we were there in Tourcoing in the north of France, and we took this opportunity to really take our time to find funding, to get a grant, so we could also ask money from the bank, so we would have comfortable funds before starting the company, because everyone told us it's much more easier to find money when you are creating the company than later, because later people will say, are you profitable? Why would we invest? But when it's just a project, you can say, hey, it's gonna be great, look at our super cool project, and people believe you. So it's easier.
Definitely, that's really good advice, because I wish I'd done that when I had started, because like you say, it is when you're at the beginning, because there's a lot of incentive for like governments to help start up businesses, because starting, and if you grow, you can get more jobs, and you're in your case adding sort of creatively to the economy, so there's like incentive there. But when you started, it's like, okay, now what have you done? And as if you don't know much at the beginning and you haven't done much, and it's much harder for someone to then give you money. So that's really good advice for anyone wanting to start their own studio. Get the money early. So, I mean, you talked about your game, A Normal Lost Phone, which was a project that became the first game. Can you just like recap the story, what it's about, and the mechanic in particular, and then what was your specific role in that development process?
Yeah. So, A Normal Lost Phone is like a kind of narrative investigation, like a virtual escape room, in which you have just found a phone and you need to look inside and find what happened to its owner. So to do that, you will read messages, look at pictures, and you will need to find like what are their passwords to get into apps, and then find new information, etc., to progress in the story. And it's I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't played it, but it's a story that touches on social themes, like coming of age, LGBT life, and also like more hard stuff like depression and the life of a teenager. So what my role was, so I helped the art director in finishing the game, polishing the game. So I did some 2D assets and layouts and drawing for the game, UI, avatars, stuff like that. And I also did a lot of visual assets for communication, external communication of the game. Like I did social media communication, the visual part, but also writing posts and working with translators also for having our communication in different languages, because we're a French team, but also in the team there was a person from Spain who lived in Germany. And we made the first version of the game in French, English, and Spanish, and later we had it translated in other languages to reach like more people. So this was an important part of the communication. I also, as I mentioned before, had to manage most of the crowdfunding campaign for the game, and that was it basically. It's already a lot of stuff.
That's a lot.
But,
that's quite varied. Like, that's a lot of different bits. So even like you say, not just in the game, not just like art in the game, but around the game in marketing and crowdfunding. So that's cool. And I imagine, I mean, you tell me, because you, before coming to this role and founding Accidental Queens, you had various roles. Was there anything that you were able to bring, like skills or experiences that you were able to bring from previous roles that helped you where you are now?
I had a bit of experience with working on websites, and I was able to do both drawings and visual stuff, but also a bit of video, and also I could do a lot of stuff as long as it was tied to artistic skills, because I had the opportunity to do a bit of all of these things. Like, I was never the best in some field, but I have a large skill set.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's cool. So all those experiences kind of added up for you to be like valuable in the team. That's really cool. So then, like, for someone who's in a similar position to where you were in like 2016 or even before that, maybe, like, what advice would you give to them in terms of getting into the industry and maybe considering wanting to make their own studio at some point?
I guess really depends on their what they want to do. If that's someone with the same kind of background that I had, I'd say you need to have a bit of luck because but because it's an important factor, like finding the right opportunity. But it's not like waiting for it to happen. You have to create it, and for that you need to work hard on your projects, your portfolio. You will go participate in game jams, make some personal projects, maybe also if you have ideas of games you want to make, like, just make them. Make them small stuff. Really, it's more important to have small polish stuff that you can show people and give them an idea of what you want to do and know how to do. It's more important than having big ideas that you will never be able to achieve by yourself, because they are too ambitious or overscoped. And also find other people to work with them. Have a good network. If you can go to a school, it can be really, really cool, but I know not everyone can afford them, because most of them are not cheap. Engmin is in France like the only public one, but most of other schools are super expensive. So if you can't afford that, try to find people online, on social network, on communities around indie games, and try to find other people who want to make games with you.
Yeah, that networking, again, like you say, just so important, as well as getting the skills.
Yeah, because a lot of people think that they think about indie games, and they have this myth of the lone developer in their basement making a game all by themselves. And it can happen. Some people do it, but it's not the norm. Most games are made by teams. They are made by a group of people with different skill sets that are complementary. Like, for example, I know how to make art, and the person I work with, Diane, she is a programmer. So we are complementary and can make stuff together. If you are, I don't know, a sound designer, maybe you will want to make music and sound for other people's games. Like, there are a lot of ways you can contribute to a game, to the development of a game. And you don't need to know how to do everything by yourself. Like,
Okay, I'm glad you said that, because I know I've spoken to some young people, and they need to hear that. So thank you. So we talked about your first game. You're currently working on you've got other games that have come out. You've got future projects we'll get into. But I'm interested to know, like, from making that first project to founding a studio and now working on future projects, what have you learned in between, like, the first game and, like, the second and third?
A lot of things, actually. Like how, owning a studio and managing a studio day to day is not the same as just making games, because there is a lot of work that isn't really tied to game development, like finding some money to fund the games, finding people who will talk about your games, finding people to hire, to work with. Actually, we don't hire a lot. We mostly work with contractors, so we can have, like, diverse teams really suited for one particular project that we are working on. So
I guess that gives you some more flexibility as well.
Yeah, because we worked on games that are relatively short, and the development time is also relatively short. So we wouldn't have full-time work for a whole team with all skills. We really want to only work with people when it's needed. Also, our games are quite different. Obviously, the first two are similar, because the second game was a kind of spiritual sequel to A Normal Less Fun. But after that, we made a game, Alt Frequencies, that was really based on audio and sound. So we needed, of course, a sound designer, which was super important for that particular game. Meanwhile, in the previous ones, it was just like something that we could outsource, because it was just some UI sounds and stuff like that. Some of our collaborators are recurrent. Like, we work with super cool musicians for the original soundtrack of the first game, and we kept working with them because they are cool and make cool music, and we like to have cool music in our games. So we learned to size appropriately our teams, like, and also have the right people for the right game. We also learn a lot about how to say that. Let's say the most difficult part in developing the game is the human factor, like the communication between people. The fact is, you will need very good project management because what's harder is having clear goals and making them understood by all people involved, and having them work together on those goals. And sometimes so sometimes there will be conflicts between people, and you need to know how to diffuse the situations. And also we learn how to work with tight budgets, because indie games are not. It's hard to get them well funded. So we had to scope down some things, learn how to do more with less, and I think sometimes we just overworked ourselves to do it, and it's something we really try to avoid now. We really don't want to crunch, to work too much, on nights and weekends, and it's something that we did in the past, and it was really unhealthy, and it hurt some of our production. So that's something we know. Try to avoid, even if it's not always possible, but we really try to avoid that.
I guess that goes to your point about managing the projects and knowing that you want to avoid those situations as best as you can. Then you have to manage the project a different way.
Something that we did very early is trying to have some work done remotely, because we had a team that was scattered at first in France and even other countries, and even after we got our office, not everyone wanted to move there and be there permanently. So, for example, we worked with someone who lives in another city, and they used to come to the studio once every 2 weeks, and the rest of the time we're working via Slack and Google Drive and other tools that we use to work remotely. So when in 2020 there was the whole pandemic thing, and we had to switch to full work from home, it was different, but we had all the tools in place to do it, because we had learned to work from home for a long time. It's still not the same thing, because it's important to have sometimes meetings, in-person meetings, where you can discuss the game and the development, but also other things like just team building, and it's not the same when it's all online and there is no in-person discussions and stuff. So it makes it a bit harder, but and slower. We really had to slow down our processes, but it still works.
Okay. I get what you mean about in-person meetings, because sometimes you do, if it's Zoom or wherever it might be, it's very, because you talk about what you want to talk about and then you finish. Whereas if it was in person, you might be a bit more back and forth, a bit more human, I guess, and that
and
helps.
It's time like that sometimes you have good ideas even for the project, because you will just casually talk about stuff, and I've seen this cool movie, and have you heard about it? It might tie to the thing we are talking about in our game. What do you think? And it's a way also to find ideas and to find them together, and it's a shame that we can really do that on Zoom meetings.
I get that. Cool. So you touched on your third game, Alt Frequencies. So I want to talk a bit about mechanics, because that has a time loop mechanic. Can you? Are you a fan of time loop stories? And how do you work that into a game?
I'm not especially a fan of time loop stories, but yeah, I find time loop cool because they are. But this game was Diane's idea. She really wanted to make something around a radio, which would be broadcasting for a length of time, and you could maybe interact with it. That was the first pitch of the game. Was, imagine if you had a radio, and after some hours of broadcasting, it was looping and looping again, and you had to find why. That was the first pitch.
Okay.
And at first, she wanted like 24 hours of broadcasting stuff. I've been a lot of content, so she said maybe just 1 hour would do. The final loop in the game is 3 minutes, and it's already a lot of content because it's 3 minutes around like 5 stations at the same time, and so it's a lot of audio content to record. So she really wanted to explore what you could do with like this audio format, because she's a fan of podcasts, and she wanted to do like some sort of interactive podcast. So that was really the first idea for the game. And when we tried to make a prototype of this idea, we quickly realized that if we wanted to interact with it, we would have to come up with a new mechanic, because in real life you don't interact with your radio, and quickly we found that like getting snippets of sound and like taking them out of context and putting them in other stations, it was a really good metaphor for the kind of way we interact with like Twitter, some kind of social media where you just have like bite-sized like sentences and statements and
Take
stuff like that.
Context,
yeah. So we had this idea of, maybe we can make it a game about information and how we interact with information. And so from that, we made this game about media in general, through the prism of radio, of course, but it's more about like our relationship to media and how decontextualization of information works. And it's a game about critical thinking about media.
Okay, that's really cool. It's good to hear how that came from the idea of a mechanic, a game mechanic, that then ties to like a social message, social commentary.
Yeah,
as well.
It's not always that way. Like, for example, for the Lost Phone games, the topic came before the mechanic, and we knew what we wanted to do for the second game, and research about the topic before finding the new mechanics of the second game. But for Alt Frequencies, it was really about the mechanic first, and the topic came later. The time loop is just a cool thing that enabled us to add this how to say that, to have a fixed length, because if we didn't have this time loop mechanic, how to gate the content, we would have like too much content to produce. So this time loop allows us to have this neat 3-minute segments that we can work with, and we from that we had this whole plot about a conspiracy, like why is there a time loop? It's the government who wants to lock us down, and we work with this.
Okay, cool. And like, what's because you told us about how you've got this like social message in the game, and I know that's a big part of sort of you as a studio to put in those social messages. Like, what are the challenges? But I guess firstly, like, what does that mean to you as a studio, to the importance of putting social messages in games? Like, why do you why do you do that? Basically, why?
At first, it was just because we wanted to talk about the subjects, because there are subjects that are important to us as people, and games are a fantastic way of telling stories and giving messages to people, and so we get inspiration from like day-to-day life, and those messages are part of our lives. So we really wanted to talk about them in our games, and I think it's something that is like normal and accepted in like films, movies, in books, in and in games. It maybe took a while to get to mainstream games, but there are a lot of indie titles that touches on social topics. Like, it has been this way for a long time already, and we just thought it was the right thing to do.
Okay. And like, how do you handle that? I guess there's challenges to it from a game development perspective. Like, how do you make sure it fits within the game, like it makes sense, it's delivered properly, but then also from a player perspective. I remember having a conversation with someone who, this wasn't specific to games, but I think it kind of applies, where they were saying, like, is there a danger of putting, I can't remember the exact words they used, but a danger of putting like sort of social messages into your story. And I told him, like, no, the only sort of danger is making a bad story. You can do it. So in terms of like the reaction to your games, like, what is the reaction to that, and how do you handle any potential negative reactions to putting social messages in your games?
First, I just want to say, I think there are social messages in every media, every piece of media, because
well, that's what I said to her. For me, a story has otherwise it's a bad story. If there's no message, if it's not saying anything, then why are you making it?
Maybe it's intentional, maybe it's not. Maybe it's just like unconscious. You're talking about stuff that are like related to you, so you will unconsciously give some kind of message, but we just do it consciously. but every story has a message. And for about the players' reactions, they were mostly positive. Of course, some people weren't happy about the topics that we talked about. There was like some messages, like some Steam comments or stuff like that, that were I don't know, like homophobic stuff or sexist stuff, but it was really like not a lot of message. Also, they quickly get deleted. But I think from the players, the reception was mostly positive and good. And also, it's worth mentioning that our games have been let's played a lot by YouTubers, streamers. A lot of people like broadcast our games, and so it's also very wholesome to see the YouTube comment section. Like, for example, there is that video from Jacksepticeye. He made 2 videos about a normal phone. They are like super long, and the comment section are all young people saying, "Oh, thank you for making this. Thank you for talking about the subjects. Thank you for speaking out for tolerance and for like talking about the subjects in a good way to your audience." So our public really wants to see those subjects in games, and mostly it's been really positive. In the press, it's a bit different, because everyone has their own idea of how we should talk about those messages. And so some people thought that we didn't do it right, and that's their opinion, and on some part I agree that especially for a normal lesson, that was the first game, so obviously not everything is perfect in it, and there are something that we could have done better, but mostly positive reaction also.
Okay. Wow, that's good to know, because it is a thing where we have it in other mediums, and I feel it's just coming into games more and more. But maybe we have, and it's not everyone, but an audience that largely isn't used to having sort of certain messages in games that we're used to just playing games and just pressing buttons and getting a reaction. So it kind of feels like we're moving into a space where we can get different messages. And the other thing I always keep in mind for people is like, not every game is for everyone. So sometimes you make a game, it might not be for you, but like you say in those YouTube comments, like it speaks to some people, and that's important.
Yeah, and also I think we also try to we are not telling people what they should think. We are just giving like information and like characters who just have a story, I guess, and it's supposed to make people reflect about those experiences and social subjects. But we are not telling them, oh, you should be like that and think like that. So I think it's easier to just like accept those games as they are, because even if you aren't, even if you're totally ignorant about the subject, maybe you would just learn something, and maybe you already have an opinion about the subjects, and that would be different from ours, and it's fine if you disagree with what we said, and maybe you will like reflect on it, maybe not. It won't prevent you from enjoying the gameplay part of the game, I think it's something that's really important in our games, that you don't have to agree with the message and even understand the message to complete the game and have fun with the game. You can just see it as something to like an investigation to solve puzzles and stuff like that, and just ignore the message if you don't like it. So I think it's easier to accept for a lot of people than other kind of stories or other kind of games. But I also think that people are ready to play those kind of games. People want them, and I think it's a good thing.
Yeah. So I mean, looking ahead, we recently had E3, and we're in this kind of summer game fest where we've got a lot of showcases and things like that. Is that something that you've been part of, or are looking to be part of in future, like a future E3 showcase? Like, what's the future for you?
First of all, I think we've never been to E3. I think once we had, I think we had like the normal lesson prototype on the side of a booth at E3 back in 2016. But generally we are more present in more like indie focused events. But in the future, we are currently working on a fourth game. It's still really, really early in its development. We just have a first prototype, and it's what can I say? It will be about a group of women who do heists, and it's
immediately interested. Say no more.
Okay. And no, I can also say that it will be a a card game. Like we got inspired by classic card game like blackjack and solitaire and games like that, and we try to find cool mechanics around that. In terms of stories and stuff that we say with this game, it's mostly about interpersonal relationships between those women and how their work life and personal life are intertwined, and basically we are going to talk about work. Okay. the word of working in 2021, and like ironically we had this first idea before the pandemic, and so we changed something that we wanted to say because we learned a lot of things like during the last year. Yeah. And we had a different we had to change a bit what we wanted to say, but okay. I think it could really be a interesting way of talking about those subjects.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm definitely a fan of heist stories. Ocean's 11 is one of my favorite films, and one of the mayamada manga stories is a heist story, and I like the format, but also as a framework for discussing other topics as well. Just heist stories are cool. So, but yeah, and you never know, because when I see some of these showcases in E3 or elsewhere, I was actually sort of pleasantly surprised at the amount of focus indie games get compared to previous years. So you never know, in future could be have that up on stage somewhere. So something to look forward to. But
maybe
you never know what could happen. But Miryam, my final question is, where can people find out about your work, follow you online?
You can find us on Twitter. It's at AccidentalQ for the company. You can find me also on Twitter. I'm LTEMI, LTEMI. You can also find our games on most platforms. On PC, you can find us on Steam, on itch.io. Recently, we had the Lost Fun games coming to Good Old Games, GOG. So that's somewhere you can find us. You can also obviously find our games on mobiles. So we are on iOS and also Android phones. You can find us on Switch. All of our games have been ported to Switch. And that's it, I think.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll put some links in the YouTube description so people can check that out as well. But thank you for joining me, Miryam. It's been really good to hear about your journey and some of the work that you're doing.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for the interview.
No problem. And thank you for watching. So if you've enjoyed this, definitely make sure you follow us on YouTube. Head over to Twitch as well, and you can see some of the interviews and events that we do live. So make sure you follow us in both places. You can also check out our podcast. So I do a podcast, Story X Story, with the GamePad host Tazzy, and we talk about stories across pop culture, including video games. So you can check that out wherever you get your podcast from. That's it from us for now. Like I mentioned at the beginning, this is one of a series of interviews we do with video game professionals to find out about their journey. So check out our other videos and stay tuned for discussions we have in future. Take care, everyone. Hey there, I'm Nigel from mayamada. Thanks for watching our video. Don't forget to subscribe and check out the other great videos we have on the channel. You can also join the GamePad Discord and check out the next event at gamepad.events. We'll see you soon.